much for taking time to talk with me about Inside Out 2. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love having conversations like after a film's theatrical run because we can now also talk about like what a massive success this film was. Have you been able to enjoy and sort of bask in the success of Inside Out 2?
Yeah, in so many ways. I love the conversation of it. More than anything, I love getting to hear how people relate to it. Like, do they think of themselves at that age? Do they think of their kids? It brings something up for everyone, and everybody has a different sort of conversation about it. So
Yeah.
I I love having a social shortcut in that way. But also to really hear how it touched people. I'm getting a lot of really beautiful stories from people, and I think it was a cathartic watch as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anxiety is just everywhere these days, so it's really helpful to have a
Mhm.
personification for that and start some great conversations.
And one so that can be so tenderly talked to
Yeah,
also. Some
absolutely.
tools taught along with that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you've been at Pixar for you worked for Pixar for so long now, but now you have the distinction of being the first woman to score a Pixar feature. What was it like receiving the call to score Inside Out 2?
It's so funny because I I was finishing off Carl's date, and there was this sort of overlap of information, I guess, as I was just coming off of the other. So I didn't was like, okay, next project. I think I sort of blotted out the was trying to blot out the okay, this is gonna be big. Are you sure? Um, but I definitely had a big amount of my own anxiety with it, but also it was the movie for me. I feel like there is no movie more meant for me than as my first theatrical feature than this one. It echoed so much that was so meaningful for me and a story to tell. So it's it's been an amazing ride since I said yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's not just any feature. It's this sequel. You've worked with Michael Giacchino for many years,
Mhm.
and now you have the unenviable task, and that pun is intended, to follow up his iconic score. His score is so well known for that first
Right.
film. How did you find the balance as you stepped onto this
Mhm.
project of utilizing elements from that score that people know so well, but also making this your own?
Well, the cool thing about this story overall, and it's important for any sequel or any continuation of a story, that you just get right into what's now, not trying to just revisit what made the first one so special. I mean, with everybody's life, that's like in your DNA at that point. So it's going to be there, absolutely no matter what. But right away with this story, you smash cut into, okay, she's a teenager now and things are changing, and they wanted sonically to remind you of that immediately. This is demolition going on inside of her. So that was something I was encouraged to do from the beginning, to really pay attention to what the story was asking for right in that moment. Now, as far as incorporating Michael's themes, um, that was also um, an easy task because I know where it's supposed to go. And it was important. It's very obvious within the story because that theme was really the most impactful, or created as Riley and Joy as their most Riley and Joy, as Joy as her joyiest, sweet, pure. Um, and those moments become obvious in the film. Like from the start, you get our catch up there, and then when they come back together in the end, in that she's feeling joy. The rest of the time, it's not happening.
Mm.
Um, so I was encouraged to reserve that for where it would maintain its impactfulness, and then explore what the story really needed for every other moment. And that gave me a lot of opportunity to branch out.
Yeah, yeah, and developing the sound for a sort of new Riley, like you said, as right after the Disney and Pixar titles, you sort of slam in with this roaring guitar and pounding drums,
Mhm.
and you really feel Riley's a teenager now. How did you approach the sound for what a teenage Riley needed to sound like?
Um, a lot of listening to music that's out right now, um, but also music that just made me feel like getting in touch with that age of myself, um, and what made me feel like that age of myself. Um, and one night I went roller skating. I went to a themed skate. It was Barbie versus barbed wire. Um, did a really fun themed skate in Burbank, and the DJ was playing this awesome mix of psychobilly and metal and punk. And as I was skating around, I just started feeling so just like full of, am I okay to say badass? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
That bad, you bad bleep. um, that badass energy where it made me think of, okay, this is Riley charging through the gates. Um, and roller derby, and I hadn't gotten the chance to play ice hockey ever. I think I would probably kill myself. But I watched a bunch, and watched a lot of roller derby, and I wanted to capture that sense of when you are sort of unhinged with everything going on inside of you. That height, and I made myself a good playlist of all of that called Hyper Girl Hockey. Like, I wanted to feel like you just downed six pixie sticks and you are with your best friends with no supervision. And
That's so good. Yeah, and we're exploring that side of Riley, but then we also have all these new emotions as well. Obviously, that like we already talked about, anxiety is the most prominent of these new emotions. Did you know right away what anxiety needed to sound like, or did that take some discovery for you?
it did take some discovery. And I had several versions of it that were just so many notes. They were just going all over the place, thinking about, okay, well, thoughts go all over the place as you're, but but what was consistent to me was it needed to sound like somebody just going, hey, 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 just poking you constantly. Um, and that's not a bunch of notes. That's an alarm that gets stuck on. So that once I captured that and understanding that it's just a message that needs to get through. It was needs to be a get your attention, zing, and then that alarm to keep you processing this. And then what is the message? So ending up with but at the core of that just being da 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 da, but processed in this different way that you can then break that out in every way that will get her job across, which is sometimes militaristic. Da, 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 da. Um, to finally just breaking down altogether and having that deconstructed when she's inside her panic attack there.
Mm. Was that the most challenging? Obviously, anxiety is the sort of villain-esque of the story, and the most prominent of the new emotions. Was she the most challenging to pin down musically?
Um, yes and no, because it took me a little while to decide on the theme, which I think is really apropos. Each one of the sort of musical signatures for emotions came in their own way, in a certain way that feels like them. I had to really overthink getting anxiety down. But then once it was there, I was like, no, this is absolutely it. Because it became so versatile to represent there. Yeah.
That's good. The core belief system is also a huge part of this movie, and the sound you create is really unique. Is it vocalizing that's in there? Tell me about how you created that sound.
Yeah. So in the beginning, getting as you enter that space, it made me think of a cathedral. And I love going into an old cathedral and thinking about the all the echoes of prayers, of people's voices singing that mingle up there, and how when you speak in there, it echoes with this wood or the glass that it has mingled with all of these thoughts and hopes and prayers before. And as the core beliefs are floating around down there, I thought about the messages that they are all sending up. And this texture of what does that all sound like together? So I used my voice on that and mumble spoke. Um, I I was reminded of Radiohead, this track, Everything in Its Right Place,
Mm-hmm.
um, where it sounds like there is a message in there about essence of being or something, or in reverse and slowed down. And I can't I did some listening uh on how that comes across in different mediums when people mumble speak. And in the end, I just sat down and gave it a shot one night, just trying it. And that is what ended up in the score. This, like, all right, I'll just see what happens. I even tried to recreate it later, and it was just that off the cuff. What happens if I just go, no, sort of thing, and then pitch it, pitch it, pitch it. So I have, 18 tones or something of that I could turn into an instrument if I wanted.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful, and I think you captured that chapel sort of experience and listening to that
Oh,
those
thank you.
tracks. Yeah, it's beautiful. Like you said earlier, this is your first theatrical feature as a solo composer. But you've had years of experience in the industry. How did your experience in this industry prepare you to tackle your first theatrical feature?
Oh, I used to think that if you really wanted to go be a feature composer, you should not get into assisting, because there's so much wonderful life to be had in assisting and in co-composing and all these different fields. And you'll just get sucked into that, and you won't invest in yourself as a composer, um, and creating those relationships. Um, so I was very happy in the world that I was in, and also a little shy, honestly. Though I love people and collaborating, I was a little shy, and I didn't necessarily want the world to judge. Um, but so I came in a bit of a side door in that I didn't expect, but one that I had a dream of as a kid. So I'm very lucky for that. Um, but since I did work in the background for all that time, I learned from the ground up on so many different projects what it takes in in every corner of it, from starting uh, getting the layout and getting spotting going, from start to finish to the dub stage and final delivery. So that made me feel very confident that I could I could handle the varying energies of each of those, because each of these processes is a very different energy. And also get to know team members that I was able to work with. If I had been starting from just a leadership position, I wouldn't have the same kind of relationship with the people that I work with and that I love to work with. So this was very meaningful for everyone.
That's so good. Well, I mean, a similar question, seeing as Inside Out 2 is very introspective, literally, and honestly helps us, understand ourselves a little bit better. What do you feel like you learned about yourself throughout the process of working on Inside Out 2? I mean, you talked about feeling shy before taking on this role, or feeling, not sure if that was the direction you wanted to go. What did you learn about in the process?
Oh, this was so cathartic. This whole process, I it's incredibly deep. I had a lot of leftover wounds, honestly, from that age time, and that I had to reach into. And at the same time, not let that run the show, because that 13-year-old is not going to finish a score. Um, but I learned a lot about uh, trusting myself, honestly, and that our wounds are where our strengths come from. And even though I saw on the screen all these lessons that I had learned in the past too, so I felt like it was so important for everybody to see this film and to learn that, I still had to go through it again. I still had to learn every day to accept all the different parts of me that were showing up with compassion. I still think about it, but now I have this amazing imagery. Like, okay, am I being okay with the fact that I'm overwhelmed right now, and accepting that and holding it? Or am I still trying to hold on too tight? I think I learned to heal a lot through the process of writing this score, and I think it comes through the emotion of the score. But I also learned that it's not some we're not cakes. We don't get done. Get in the oven and we bake up to, because then we just get eaten and when we're done. This is something that we look at through different lenses again and again and again. And I'm so grateful that this story and the images and the tools that it brought forth are here for that.
That's beautiful. Well, Andrea, I love your work in the film. I love the film as a whole. So thank you so much for telling me more about it. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely.